Geometry Dash might very well be one of the most difficult games out there, with the difficulty of the game being pushed by harder and harder levels. When Bloodbath first dropped, it was a level unlike anything the game had seen before, an unreal level with jaw-dropping gameplay and absurd demands from the player. Only one person out of millions had beaten it, and that person's name is Riot.
Oh my god!
It would be 7 months before someone else beat Bloodbath. However, as time went on, more and more levels would be made and would turn out even harder than Bloodbath. Phobos and Sakup in Hell were the next two levels to dethrone Bloodbath from its title of hardest Geometry Dash level. It's the equivalent of hearing that there were theropod dinosaurs even larger than the Tyrannosaurus Rex. As years went on, your Riots, Quasar, and Sandstorms, players who were good enough to beat Bloodbath, Sakup in Hell, and Phobos, will get outpaced by better players like your Trustas, Combines, and Sunixes. They would beat even harder levels like Yatagarasu, Digital Descent, and Sonic Wave. These levels were a new generation of difficulty, being hundreds of levels harder than Bloodbath, Sakup in Hell, and Phobos. Then, as even more time passes, you get another new generation of level difficulty. Bloodlust, a remake of Bloodbath, is probably the most popular and legendary level to ever claim the throne of hardest level in the game, being around 300 levels harder than Bloodbath, Phobos, and Sakup in Hell, and around 100 levels harder than Yatagarasu, Digital Descent, and Sonic Wave. This was seen as the highest of high, difficulty beyond difficult. It was on the throne for a year and 17 days before something else finally dethroned this monstrosity. Bloodlust becomes completely outclassed by a new age of levels like Zodiac, the Golden, and Tartarus, introducing obstacles so difficult that you often only have one frame to click and not die on certain FPS values. Beating Bloodbath is like traveling to the moon, but now the game is asking you to go to Saturn. And it doesn't stop there. Slaughterhouse, Silent Clubstep, and Acheron all make levels that outclass even Bloodlust look like child's play. Mind you, beating Bloodbath for an average person is harder than any Elden Ring boss. Imagine levels light years ahead of Bloodbath, easily 10 times harder, being beaten in less than a day. Would you believe that there are people out there that are gifted enough to do this? With a game where the difficulty only increases over time, there are actually people that are more impressive than the difficulty of the levels. Right now, there are 3 inhuman people that I want to talk about. People who are able to beat levels harder than Bloodlust, a level that took its verifier 121,000 tries, in under 4,000. Levels harder than those that outclass Bloodlust, they are able to beat in just a couple of days. These 3 people are hands down the 3 best Geometry Dash players at the time this video is released. And these 3 players are W Popoff, Trick, and Zoink. What is next for these players? What are their most likely next steps, their next achievements? And will they be able to push this game even further in difficulty, despite how far we've already come? We'll go over W Popoff first. This year alone, Popoff went from being one of the most underrated players to one of the undisputed tops. This year so far, he has beaten over 17 main list demons, 4 of which are top 10 levels, and of those 4, 1 being the hardest in the entire game. He's beaten Slaughterhouse over 40 times.
Alright, Popoff. Let me ask you a question real quick. I just want to ask you one question. How many times have you beaten this level?
Alright, if I had to say it legitly, over 100.
Oh my god.
Why?
Acheron at least 3 times, Slaughterhouse 3 times in a row, and almost beat Trick for Tidal Wave's first victor. Right now, Popoff has a short-term goal of getting number 3 on the Pointer Crate leaderboards, with a long-term goal of having an era of Geometry Dash as the best player. As for surpassing Trick and or Zoink, that probably won't happen until next year. Trick has most of the top 25 completed, and he rests at number 2 on Pointer Crate, despite Trick's score being severely underrated. And Zoink has over 60 main list levels beaten, which puts him in a comfortable number 1 spot on Pointer Crate. I think Popov could definitely take number 1 by next year, but he would have to do a lot of monotonous grinding. The second thing is that Popov is currently verifying a new top 1, Behemoths. Popov stated that he will buff the level to be harder than Tidal Wave if it's not harder than Tidal Wave already. I think this will be a good look for him, especially when solidifying his own era, breaking Zoink's record of having the top 3 demons verified solely by him. Lastly, I think completing the top 10 list would be a great achievement to have by the end of this year. Popov clearly has the skill to complete every level, beating a buffed copy of Acheron twice when it was top 1, beating Tidal Wave as the current top 1, beating Silent Clubstep, and beating Abyss of Darkness in the lowest amount of attempts out of anybody. He also has Slaughterhouse, Sukupen Circles, and Tunnel of Despair under his belt, which leaves only 3 top 10 levels for him to beat. I think Avernus would be the best look, as it has only been beaten by Zoink, Trick, and Diamond, and maybe Light by the time this video drops. Long term, Popov is the current verifier of Kingdom of Miracles, which is still a work in progress. Its host says that they are willing to bet by the time that the level is finished that it will be harder than Eternus. This means for Popov's theoretical peak, he would be beating and verifying levels of Eternus' difficulty. I do think if anyone has the potential to beat Eternus, it would be these 3 players we're talking about, or a new generation of players, but as of right now, you don't get more talented than a Popov or a Zoink. And with the increase in Popov's experience, being the verifier or first victor of Eternus would definitely set his name in stone as one of the most important Geometry Dash players. This of course isn't far-fetched, since he's assigned to verify something that's even harder, but that probably won't be until 2026 or 2027. Next we'll go over Trick. Trick is a player whose dedication is basically unparalleled. He's been a top player for several years and is getting ready to take the number 1 spot. And back when Zoink was going on his tear as the number 1 player, Trick was the only person who had a comparable amount of skill in comparison to Zoink. The perception of Trick being number 1 was saved by narrowly beating W Popov in the race of Tidal Wave's first victor, making his real competition Zoink. However, as of right now, Trick has done everything substantial that Zoink has done, making him eligible to take the throne as best Geometry Dash player. Right now, he is verifying APT, or an Apocalyptic Trilogy, a level that is apparently much harder than Tidal Wave, and a level that will probably be harder than Behemoths. Once he does verify this, he'll probably be slated as the best Geometry Dash player. I also imagine him to be the first victor of Behemoths, having an edge against Zoink for reasons we'll get into briefly. Other than stress, I don't see why Trick wouldn't go for Behemoths. However, this is only one piece of the pie. We don't know if Trick is or isn't beating Codependence, which is currently the hardest 2-player level. However, Trick has definitely acknowledged its existence, stating that he has beaten the entire top 23 except for that level. He's also stated that he will beat the entire main list one day, which would have to include beating Codependence. He also has the level in his folders, suggesting he's at least tried it out. If Trick were to beat Codependence right now without beating a new top 1, he would also be slated as quote-unquote better than Zoink, due to Zoink trying and putting Codependence to the side, being deemed as one of the only levels that Zoink is afraid of. I think Trick has a bright future ahead of him, and I'm pretty interested in seeing how his journey pans out. Hopefully he has his own era soon, and is slated best Geometry Dash player after so many years of being a top player. Finally, we have Zoink. Zoink is in an interesting position where he doesn't actually have to do anything. He was voted best player of 2023 by a long shot, and let's be honest, he was the best player of 2022. Sorry, doggy. He has verified the top 3 hardest demons in the game, has cleared the entire top 75 at one point, verified half of the top 10, and got first victor on lots of top demons. As Zoink stands right now, he has beaten Tidal Wave in less attempts than W Popov and Trick, while getting quote-unquote unluckier, which just means dying later into the level more often. This is probably why he is still seen as the number 1 player. Recently though, he has come back from a 2-month break, said to be a result from a lack of passion and other personal things. At first I was like, you're 16 years old, what do you mean a lack of passion? But then I remember that I lost my passion for Fortnite at 16. And that game, by the way. Anyways, this lack of passion will probably carry over to the near future, especially because there's nothing really left for him to do, pushing the limits of the game 3 separate times already. Although I don't think Zoink is going to stop playing the game entirely, I do think Trick and even Pop-Off will overtake him very soon. I don't think Zoink has reached his peak and will probably end up beating APT and Vehemence, but with him having his passion reduced before, he probably won't care to get first victor or anything of the sort. Right now, Zoink is verifying no-scapes, which I don't think will reach the top 5. Of course, I'm not qualified to speak on level difficulty when it comes to this caliber of levels, but I'm pretty confident it's not as hard as Silent Clubstep, as it's only a sequel to Shardscapes, which is currently number 81 on the list. One thing that will remain for a while is his number 1 spot on Pointer Crate. He is so far ahead of everyone else, and due to his competency, he can easily rack up more and more points. When someone overtakes his position on Pointer Crate, I think it will be after he is no longer perceived as the top player. No matter the case, I think Zoink has had an amazing run as a top 1 Geometry Dash player. I predict his hardest before he stops playing will either be Grief or the Apocalyptic Trilogy, whichever one ends up being harder, because I do know what it feels like to lose passion for a game. But then again, these are only my predictions. Anything can really happen. We're just speculating. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. Make sure to check out my other videos. You can find some other kinds of videos in the links found in the description. In any case, I love you all. Thanks for stopping by and enjoy the rest of your day.